Thank you, Jason. Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, and thank you for all of you joining us here tonight at this 50th Wrestling Hall of Fame. The year was 1965. Don Buzzard and a few of his buddies that loved wrestling founded the Iowa Hall of Fame, and today here we are 50 years later, and I just want to thank those people for acknowledging our sport. That's tremendous that they do that. Anyway, before I get started, I do have several people I'd like to thank, and that is your board of directors for all their effort, time that's put in, and the selection committee that has the ruling job of figuring out who to get in here. And then new and past inductees that are here and those that aren't here. And also I'd like to thank the people that prepared this fine meal. So they're appreciated. So I'd like to let you know that my brother, Don, who passed away in April 16th in 2016, he would be very honored. I just wish he could be here, but I know that he's probably looking down and going, by golly, you know, I got in that. That's pretty unique. So anyway, I know he would be very elated, and Don had a lot of support from his family, friends, teammates, school officials, and certainly all his coaches. Don's wrestling history dates back to 1950, I think 57, and he was at McKinstry Junior High. There he was in 7th grade and 8th grade. They had the city championship with Cedar Falls was in that. He won 2 of those, and 9th grade he was just, you know, in those 2 years he was pretty well dominating people, and so the Waterloo athletic directors got together and said, we think we ought to send this kid up, you know, in the 9th grade to the high school, which in Waterloo schools back then, they didn't have 9th grade wrestling, 10th, 11th, and 12th, but no 9th grade. So we probably left a lot of good kids at home that, you know, are back in junior high that could have really helped out some of those lightweights. But anyway, Don got up to the high school and was allowed to wrestle. And in 1961, that was his freshman season that year, he would take off every day after McKinstry in the school day, and he'd take off and run down the railroad tracks that would take you to East Waterloo, and you know he'd run all the way because, you know, as you know, some of you know, my father was kind of a little tough guy on those things. You don't be late, you know, and be there every day. And so anyway, he ran, and every day was there, and so he had to wrestle this Tom Griggs, who was a senior, 120-pounder, and in that match, Don was able to win the 2 out of 3 matches and made the varsity, and so he wrestled 2 dual meets, won both of those, and in the second dual meet, though, he broke his arm and finished the match instead of won, and so he was out for the rest of the season, they thought. And so my dad was figuring it all out and talking to the doctors and says, you know, we can get this guy back, you know. And so sure enough, they got him back right at the district tournament. So Don wrestled in that district tournament and won the districts, and then got to the state finals and got beat by this senior Dick Patterson from Fort Dodge. And here he was the freshman, and you know, pretty excited that, you know, he got to the finals. Of course, you know, there were people who thought, you know, he didn't win it. But, you know, as a freshman, he's a young kid, you know, he'd been down in the junior high program. So anyway, in 1962, Don was undefeated. He beat this Dennis Kendall from West Waterloo, who finished second in state. Then he had a tie match with a state champion, senior Herb Krieger from Mason City. And Don was one of these guys that still a sophomore, still learning, you know, had a lot of weight. I mean, he went down to 138 and probably should have been up to 145, but hold that weight and went down there, and one of these kids that after he weighed in could eat everything. He wanted to eat everything he saw and drink everything he saw. And if you do that, you know, you just got a big lead weight in your belly. And so anyway, he got upset and did not qualify for the state tournament. And so he was quite distraught about that. And so 1964, 1963, excuse me, he was undefeated. He had an undefeated season, and that was at 165. And then at 164, Don wrestled at 180 in the field of wrestlers. Pretty solid state tournament at 180 that year. They're pretty darn good athletes. Anyway, in his semifinal match, he had a Clinton boy, Dick Taylor, who he pinned. And then later, he wrestled Terry Huff from Davenport. And Terry Huff went on to the University of Iowa and was all Big Ten linebacker. And so anyway, he had some solid kids in his weight, and that Huff went on, or the Taylor kid went on to wrestle professionally in the professional circuit. So anyway, then the finals, he had this Floyd Shade, who was from Des Moines Tech. And, I mean, really a belt kid. He was just solid. I mean, ripped. And so he defeated him, but he took him down the first 2 points, scored, and he rode him out that period. And then second period, he rode him out. In the third period, he escaped at the end of the match, and Don won that state tournament, but had a pretty tough go. I mean, that kid was pretty solid. You had to be at your best. And so, in Don was, in his 4 seasons, he was first at district in 1961, 63, and 64, and placed second in state in 1961. Placed first in state 1963 and 64, and Don had a undefeated season in both those junior and senior year. And his total high school record was 49-3-1. So it was then the summer of 1964. Don Huff's brother Tom and I and my brother all headed out to New York City, drove out there, and going to the World's Fair. That's where the Olympic final trials were held in New York City. And so anyway, we drive out there, and of course these guys are, my brother can eat all he wants, and Tom, he's eating, and I'm trying to make 39 and a half, and I'm going, holy moly, how do I eat with these, you know, cut weight with these guys eating, you know, they're stopping all the time, and I'm going, I don't want to stop, I just want to drive right straight through. I said, you know, you guys are going to get me overweight, I'm going to make weight. Well, that was the thing, I got there and I was 6 over, and I'm going, jeez, I says, I can't believe, you know, I just had a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it all adds up. So anyway, I have to jump up to 154 and wrestle up there. And Gordon Hassman and my brother both took second in that Olympic trials, and they both were an alternate on the Olympic team. And so anyway, John had such guys really to work out with, and you know, to wrestle. He had Wayne Bachman, who was 24 years old. My brother's 17, and Pat Lobo was 26. Dan Brand, 29, Harry Husker, 23, and all these guys were national champs. I'm going, you know, here's a 17-year-old kid hanging right there with him. So he was in a really, really a tough group of guys, and for him to excel in that, I was pretty amazed. And so anyway, Don had to make a decision whether to, because he'd been recruited pretty hard by Myron Roderick, and Roderick really kind of thought he had him all locked in. And I told Don, I said, you know, And at Iowa State, we want to beat those guys. I mean, they don't want to help them. And so I said, why do you want to go there? And he says, well, got a good program. They're always national champs. Of course, when we were kids, we would tie our beds together. We had twin beds, and we'd take our belts and strap them together, and then stuff pillows down in the crack. And we'd get on there, and he always had the Oklahoma State shirt, and I had Iowa State. We had those T-shirts. We had them dyed. Her mother died, of course, and then we write Iowa State and Oklahoma State on them. So we would have matches every night. I mean, just tear that place up. And so anyway, Don, his successes were in Iowa State were that he was a Midlands champion in 1965, Iowa State Teachers Champion, Minnesota State or champion up there, and the Mayor Daley Open, he won that. In Detroit, Michigan, he won that one. And then he was a Big 8 finalist, 66, 67, and an NCAA finalist in 67, 66, and 67. So Don's accomplishments were pretty solid. And so in 1964, his honors in high school, he was selected the outstanding athlete and at East Waterloo, and then he was in the East Waterloo Hall of Fame. He's in the football Ring of Honor. He was an all-state football player, first team, and he was in the Battle of Waterloo and in the Hall of Fame there. And he's in the Iowa High School Hall of Fame, and now he's in the IWOF, which is the Presco Iowa Hall of Fame. So it's a great honor, and it's just my pleasure to be able to, come up here and speak in his behalf. And I just wish that Don could be here. At this time, I would like to introduce a very good friend who is a journalist and author of 32 books, founder of the Win magazine, Iowa History Journal, founded and developed the Dan Gable Hall of Fame and Museum, and of course is a member of probably a dozen or more Hall of Fames, and one of the greatest wrestling contributor, if not the greatest, Mike Chapman.
Thanks, Robert. Mike Gooder, great job. Tell your dad we all miss him. We're all thinking of him. Don Gooder is a legend in my book and one of the really special people in all of wrestling. I grew up in Waterloo, one block from the Buzzards, and I never wrestled in high school. I played football, and I think Dan and Bob and people who know me would say I was an obsessive weightlifter. I was probably the most serious weightlifter I ever knew in high school. I ended up at my peak bench pressing 440 pounds. And to this day, Mark Johnson, when he calls me, he says, "Is Mr. 440 there?" Because Mark's best bench press was 435, and I never let him forget it. But that was a bad omen for me because Mr. Buzzard found out that the kid living down the street, me, was pretty strong. And he used to drive through Waterloo in his Cadillac convertible looking for people to feed to Don and Bob. Well, he found out I was pretty strong, and he fed me to Don and Bob. And I tell everybody, I learned to wrestle by eating grass in the Buzzard side yard. And then I did wrestle for 3 years in the Navy, and I love wrestling. I competed in judo and sambo and bench press contests. The thing about Don Buzzard Jr., Bob talked a little bit about his junior year. Well, his sophomore year, after he got beat at 138, the next morning he was at my house and we were scrambling eggs. He said, "Mike, I'm never cutting weight again. Never, never, never. I'm going to keep my weight close, and if I'm not good enough to compete at that weight, so be it." He went at 165 his junior year. He wrestled 23 matches. He gave up 1 point on an escape. State champion. The next year, at 180, he has 3 undefeated guys in his weight class. Terry Huff from Davenport Central was first team All-State in football, was undefeated, went on to be an All-Big Ten linebacker. Don shut him out 7-0. In the finals, he had Floyd Shade from Des Moines Tech. He was 24-0 with 22 pins, and to this day had the biggest arms I've ever seen on a high school kid. Don handled him easy. Don had pinned him the year before. Floyd Shade said, "My goal is to beat Don Buzzard in the finals." It wasn't even close. Don controlled him the whole point. Don, his senior year in high school, was first team All-State linebacker. He made the first All-American high school football team I ever saw. At one point, Clay Stapleton, the football coach at Iowa State, came to a wrestling practice at East, and I happened to be there. Stapleton watched him for 10 minutes, turned to the guy next to him and said, "That's the toughest kid I have ever seen at this stage. He's going to be an All-American football player." I know that there was a scout at one point from the Dallas Cowboys that came to an East Waterloo game. He was in town to do something else, decided to go, and he said on KWWL TV that that Buzzard kid is as good a linebacker as I've ever seen in high school. He had it all. And like Bob said, he went to the Olympic trials in New York, basically just to watch. And Bob cajoled him into entering. He goes to the finals. He's 17 years old. He beats a national champion, Harry Huska, along the way. In the finals, he has Wayne Bachman, who ended up winning 16 national titles. At that point, it won 5 or 6. Pretty tough character. It's like 3-2 in the final. You know, I asked Dan Gable or Tom Peckham or Don Huff, how many 17-year-old seniors have you ever known, including Gable Stevenson this year, whoever, who could go to the finals of the Olympic trials at the age of 17. He won the Midlands as a sophomore the first year he was eligible. He was NCAA runner-up to one of the greatest big wrestlers I ever saw, Bill Harlow from Oklahoma State. Tom, you wrestled Bill Harlow, didn't you? Beat him in the Nationals. Tom Peckham stopped Bill Harlow from being a 3-time national champ. So Harlow beats Don by 1 point in the NCAA, and he comes up to Don afterwards and he says, "I'm a senior, I'm all done. You're a sophomore, you're going to win this thing 2 more times." For those of you who know Don and love him, like I did, he was my best friend for 10 years. Don lost his enthusiasm for the sport of wrestling his junior year. He just did. Nothing wrong with that. He just lost his enthusiasm. But he was still NCAA runner-up as a junior. I moved to Fort Collins, Colorado to be sports editor. He moves out there. Him and his wife Meredith, and we were close friends for all those years. Then I moved to Cedar Rapids. I became the sports editor there. He moved to Cedar Rapids. Don and I had a great friendship, a great relationship. I've been to 47 NCAA wrestling championships. I've seen a lot of great wrestlers. I think Don Buzzard Jr. is one of the 4 or 5 greatest high school wrestlers I've ever seen in my life. It would mean a lot to him if he was here to be recognized tonight by this group of people. I think more than any other group, because he loved Cresco, he respected Tom Peckham to the utmost, he respected the tradition of Cresco, and let me close with this statement. Wrestling was Don Buzzard's family. He loved the sport of wrestling. Vic Marcucci knows that. He loved the sport of wrestling. He's not here. We lost him almost 3 years ago, but he's here in spirit, and he's one of the best friends I ever had, so thanks for honoring him.